Welcome back to the Pig Trail Show. Will Monclair alongside Kevin McPherson for your Hog Hoops report. Kevin, it's been 3 weeks since you and I are together. How you doing, man?
Will, we missed you. Courtney did a great job. You're back doing a great job. I
Oh
know
yeah,
you had some vacation there, so no
yeah, oh yeah,
grudges, not big ones.
oh yeah. Courtney's the best. I'm sure everybody really enjoyed that. Let's get into basketball, the really important stuff. So the Hawks 2-2 this week in SEC play. Texas A&M and then South Carolina. That South Carolina game almost got a little squeaky there at the end. What'd you take away from those two big matchups?
Well, you said it to begin with. You win 2 out of 2. That's the first week, midweek game going into the Saturday game that Arkansas has gone 2-0 since the SEC play started back in late December. So that tells you a lot about Arkansas's early struggles anyway, starting 1-5. Look, these two wins basically were the back half of Arkansas's 4 consecutive SEC wins. And so if you're going to position yourself like you've done in 2 prior years when you started slow, you had to win these games because A&M was at home. You came into Saturday without a road win on the season, 0-5, 0-4 in SEC road games, and South Carolina is down there in the bottom with LSU and Ole Miss coming into that game. And so if you can't win that one to get your first road win, you're probably not going to do much better and may not scratch a win on the road. So I thought Arkansas needed to get over that hump because they played so well on the road against Missouri, against Baylor in their last 2 road games, came up just short in those games. This was a game where I actually thought Arkansas in the second half played worse than it did on the road against better teams in Missouri and Baylor. So in a sense, we could say they regressed a little bit, but the big news is they won. That's the bottom line. And now they've gotten over that hump, and it gives them maybe some confidence with what's coming up on the road. We'll talk about that Kentucky matchup, but I look at these last 2 wins, Will, when we talk about whether Arkansas beats A&M by 11 or squeaks out a 2-point win at South Carolina. Arkansas, for the most part, defensively has gotten better. When you look at the winning streak in league play, in a couple of those previous road games I mentioned, they had a little backslide in the second half against South Carolina. That's something to keep an eye on. Hopefully, they can get back to playing that strong, consistently strong defense, which they had been doing. Holding in the previous 3 wins, LSU to 25+% shooting, both Baylor and A&M, better teams down in the around 34%. And so that was what the first half looked like against South Carolina, field goal wise, 33%, 10 of 30. And then the second half, Arkansas just kind of lays down on that end, and Carolina shoots better than 52%, 46% from three. And so that was a big reason why when Arkansas had those double-digit leads, 10, 11, 13 points, couldn't stretch them out and win comfortably. Late 10-0 run for Carolina got them a lead. I really loved at the end of that game, Anthony Black. After Carolina took that first lead since early in the game, he hits 2 big free throws. Then it was Ricky Council getting to the basket and scoring, AB driving to the basket and scoring. Seesaw affair, and Arkansas holds on and survives 65-63. So the win on the resume is not great in terms of it doesn't advance you. In fact, Arkansas fell 2 spots when the net rankings came out today, despite winning on the road in the SEC. That's how bad Carolina was, 280th, 285 in net rankings. So that was a quad 4 win. You lose that game, it's a quad 4 loss, and your bubble bursts. Arkansas's on the bubble right now, projected as a blast 4 by Joe Lenardi in his update on Friday bracketology. And what does that look like? Well, you're an 11 seed and you're kind of you're definitely on the bubble. That's where Kentucky is. That's what's going to make this matchup somewhat interesting. You're into February, and typically when Arkansas and Kentucky are playing in February, lately both teams are on strong footing for the NCAA tournament. And now they're just playing for, improving their seeding and their national platform. Right now, both teams are struggling just to make the tournament when you look at their resumes. And so this is a big road game for Arkansas. The Hogs, we talk about the 4 games in a row that they've won in league play. Well, make that 6 for Kentucky. Might be 7, actually. I got to go back and look at that. I think it might be 7. But, they had back-to-back losses in league play. Just like Arkansas, they had a loss in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. They lost to Kansas at home. We know Arkansas lost at Baylor. But as far as league play goes, these are arguably the 2 hottest teams, unless you want to also count Alabama, who hasn't lost in league play. But look, this has high stakes because of we're not talking about seeding for NCAA tournament. We're talking about making the tournament for both teams. So a lot going on here. I think both teams are better than their resumes look like. You always hear about teams are what they, what their records say they are. Arkansas has been dealing with injuries. That's a big part of that. Kentucky's always has of late struggles in certain stretches of their season. They're playing what was expected of them, and we know Oscar Sheboy, the SEC, the returning SEC Player of the Year. Another double double, big double double average. He's a beast around the basket. We saw Arkansas really struggle on getting defensive rebounds against the last two opponents, who were both strong offensive rebounding teams. A&M, Will, and South Carolina. That was one strength South Carolina had, good offensive rebounding team. We saw Arkansas struggle getting those defensive rebounds. But when you look at the collective second chance points in those games, Arkansas was only a collective -6 in second chance points. And so the hope is Arkansas is able to get more defensive rebounds and check a very strong offensive rebounding team, and Sheboy in particular in Kentucky. At minimum, if you lose that battle and there's some significant loss there, you want to make sure that the point conversion off of that is in line with what you've done the last two games. The other thing that hurts when teams get offensive rebounds, whether they convert those into second chance points, is that you're missing opportunities for more possessions because they're extending clock on their possession. So Arkansas, that's going to be one of the biggest keys. Obviously, the fouling and the whistles have not gone Arkansas's way for the most part on the road. That was about even yesterday. I don't think that's typically the case when you play at Kentucky. Those games are always close, no matter how good those teams are. If Arkansas is in it, it's going to be a close game. That's just the way it plays out. So there's a lot of matchups that'll be interesting as well, Will, when you look at Kentucky.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. I'm glad you brought up second chance points there, because that was something that I was thinking about as well. What do you think about both of the Mitchell twins starting? Do you think we'll do that for Kentucky? And how do you think these two teams square up?
Yeah, we'll see if Musselman, he started those two guys in the last two games. They won both. The Mitchell twins were incredible against A&M. They combined for a triple double. When you look at the block shots, they had 10 collectively, and they scored and rebounded. And then this last game, they were for the most part, they were ineffective. Combined for 7 points, 6 rebounds, and a block. And Josh Gray, the 7-footer for South Carolina, had a career game. I mean, he was 20 points and 14 rebounds, and nothing Arkansas had on its front line kept him from just dunking through most of the game or just getting shots right at the rim. And so you really can't have that. So you worry a little bit with the defensive letdown in the second half, plus a guy like that going off. If that guy's going to get 20 and 14, you don't want that to be a trend with Sheboy licking his chops. And there's other players, the transfer Reeves, the guard that came in from Illinois State. You look at Wheeler, who the transfer from Georgia, who's been there a couple of years now. And there's Toppin, who's very athletic, big, a guy that's going to match size, length. I mean, Kentucky's the kind of roster, when you look at the way they recruit, that can match some of the stuff that you might think Arkansas has an advantage with in most games, which is that positional size, length, and athleticism. Well, Kentucky's not short on that. And even though Sheboy's an undersized big relative to height, he's powerful, he's quick, he's explosive, and then he just has a veteran's knack for getting to the ball. He's always had that. And he started out at West Virginia, so he's been around a minute. So this is a team that, when I look at the matchups, you ask about that, I don't see a clear advantage for Arkansas other than, like Arkansas, Kentucky has a knack for playing down and not playing at its best, and for long stretches of games and sometimes entire games. Now, they've been winning a lot lately, but a lot of these games are close. They did go on the road and beat Tennessee. They just beat Florida at home, a Florida team that was surging. They had one of their previous losses in that 2-game losing streak was at home to South Carolina, the Gamecocks' only league win. So we know that Kentucky can have a bad game at home. And then Arkansas also, even though this is a different team 2 years later, picked up a close win, on the road. Devo Davis was part of that, had a big hand in that. Arkansas really needed that as part of that team's turnaround 2 years ago. This season, to me, for Arkansas, resembles more and more of that team 2 years ago, for a variety of reasons. But the Kentucky road game was one of the biggest wins in that climb out of the hole. And so we'll see if Arkansas can do that again. If Arkansas does that again, again, we're talking about a big, big resume win. It's a quad 1 win. despite the fact that Kentucky's on the bubble, and both teams are on the bubble. That would be huge. It's another road win. This is a big game. I'm not going to call it a must win, but it's a big one.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like that. I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent here, but Arkansas, if they lose this game, how bad do you think that is bracket wise? Do you think that is the bubble?
They're on the bubble right now. So,
Yeah.
and so
Do you
is
think it
Kentucky.
pops the bubble?
No, I don't think it pops the bubble. I think it gives Kentucky an edge, but I think Arkansas remains on the bubble with plenty of work to do and plenty of opportunities. By the way, this is the tough thing about Arkansas' schedule, the way it played out. This was always a tougher schedule to pick up quad wins at home, big quad one wins, because most of their toughest games are on the road. Even though they have home and away with Kentucky this year,
Mm-hmm.
because Kentucky's on the bubble, it means their net ranking's not great. It's right around 30. So you need them to be 30 or better for a home win to count as a quad one. So most of your game, other than that, Arkansas doesn't have any quad one opportunities at home the rest of the year. They've got Florida and Georgia still to come at home, Mississippi State sooner than that next Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
but those are not quad one opportunities. So now, but you've got 4 on the road quad ones. Kentucky, then it's A&M, another bubble team. Then it's Tennessee and Alabama. So Arkansas's got to do, and Arkansas's not been a good road team.
Yeah.
Yesterday they won, but they didn't particularly look like a team that you know was seizing a winning opportunity. They ended up doing that, but the second half they played like a team that wasn't sure that it deserved to win, and that's a little concerning. The fact that they did finally press the right buttons at the end, some of that had to do with just South Carolina being so inept, and it seemed like at times Arkansas was trying to match that ineptness. That's not a winning formula for consistent winning on the road. That's why, even though I think there's a confidence level for getting that win finally away from home on a true road game, there's still some stuff because of the way that second half played out that I think is concerning. It doesn't mean it's going to have that negative carryover to the next game. You certainly hope that it doesn't, because I thought Arkansas was really good. I thought Arkansas was the best team on the floor despite losing at Missouri and at Baylor in the 2 previous road games. So, kind of trying to juggle all of that and put it in a blender and come out with an answer of what Arkansas is going to do in the next road game made it a little bit more difficult the way Arkansas kind of finished yesterday in that second half.
Yeah, hopefully Arkansas is able to get their second SEC road win of the season coming up on Tuesday. But Kevin, let's switch over to some Pro Hogs. I know you love watching that NBA League Pass. What are you seeing?
Man, I'm seeing the Pro Hog. Look, Isaiah Joe and Jalen Williams. It's very interesting. Both at Oklahoma City. Jalen's the rookie. Joe's in his 3rd season. Right now, Isaiah Joe, last night, 5 of 8 from 3, 18
Oof.
points. And the Thunder just blew out the Rockets. Not a very good Rockets team. The Thunder are a sort of a fringe playoff team. In fact, right now I think they're in the 10th or 11th spot, which sounds horrible, but they have one more loss than the team that slotted as the 4th seed in the West, which is the LA Clippers. So they've got an opportunity to play themselves with about 35 games left into not only a playoff spot, but perhaps as good as a 4 seed. I don't expect that to happen, but the point is, guys like Isaiah Joe and Jalen Williams are factoring into this. Joe with 18 points last night, 5 of 8 from 3, had a couple of steals, a couple of assists, and a block shot. Jalen Williams both playing off the bench last night, 8 points, made both of his 3-point attempts, 6 rebounds. But here's what I'm seeing, and I tweeted this out today. Joe right now is 4th in the NBA in 3-point field goal percentage, 44.4%. Jalen Williams last night played his 20th NBA game. He's got 8 starts. He didn't start last night, but he hit both his threes. But now in a small sample size, granted, he's 12 of 26 from 3, over 46.5% from 3. So you combine those two guys' 3-point shooting, and I started thinking about how interesting is they're not doing this in fluff time, right? They're contributing to a team that was not expected to challenge for any playoff conversation, even at the midpoint of the season. Yet here they are making a big contributions. They're also starting to play more together in the lineup, sort of in the rotation when Jalen Williams is not starting, or even when he is, they're getting some combination on the court together and having some chemistry there. But I tweeted out today, these guys are, if you look at them statistically and the way that they play, they are floor spacers. Joe, because he can knock down threes and he doesn't dribble a lot, he passes. And Jalen, because he can play out on the floor. So even when he's not knocking down threes, he passes and pulls out other bigs. It's not as clogged inside. But I was thinking this Arkansas team will probably be undefeated. Joe, in theory, would be a fifth year super first senior, because of the COVID extra year. And then Jalen Williams naturally would have been a junior. So I'm not really playing the what if game, but the point is these guys are doing really well at the NBA level. And it's great to see Bobby Portis is still out. He's been out a couple of weeks, with a strain in his knee. So we'll see when he gets back on the court. But there's a guy that's averaging a double double, the only reserve in the NBA to do that. He's still in the top 5 or 6, even though he's missed several games, and number of double doubles on the season. And again, it speaks volumes about a guy that's technically a six man. And then Daniel Gafford, speaking of double doubles, just on Saturday had 10 points and 10 rebounds for the Wizards. It was his sixth double double of the season. So he's starting to, as a starter, getting more minutes. He's putting together more and more of these big volume production in both points and rebounds, and of course blocking shots. He's a highlight reel eraser.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. I'm sure Muss as well. Wish that he could pull those two guys back for a season just in the time being with all the injuries that they're working with. But Kevin, that's all the time we got. We truly appreciate you, pal. So much more Pig Shell coming up.
Thanks, Will.